Welcome everyone. Glad you could be with us today. My name is Bruce Tamlyn. I'm the former chaplain here at Silver Bay. And today with me here at this is the library in Trinity House at Silver Bay, is Austin Porth, our digital marketing specialist at Silver Bay. And I'm grateful for Austin for taping these programs and making them available. This is part of a year-long series that we're doing for 2023 from Silver Bay. And the title of the whole series is Making the Most of This Precious Life. And you're most welcome to contact me if you have any feedback or questions, brucetamlyn@gmail.com. Again, these programs are designed for us to come to know that this life that we've been given, this gift of life, is truly precious that way, and that we can make the most of this life by doing some inner work and the willingness to sort of take a look at our life and have some reflection, and the opportunity to deepen in our journey, I think is an important part of this. The theme that we're working with, both in this program and the next one, they're tied together. It's like a mini series. The theme is coming to be our truest self, and understanding that we all have a false self, and the idea of working through this false self to become our true self is where we're going. So it's like growing into wholeness. And this fits into this whole theme of making the most of this precious life that way. And the idea of coming to understand our false self and working towards our true self is where we're going today. But before we get started, I would like to, what we always do as we begin these programs, is we do a short centering experience to ground ourselves and to feel a sense of wholeness and fullness about our life. And so what I would invite you to do is to, as I'm going to step over here and sit in this beautiful chair here in the library at Trinity House at Silver Bay. By the way, I need to tell you, it's 72 degrees here today in late October, and it's absolutely a beautiful day. It feels a little bit like a late summer day. But I hope you're able to find a nice, comfortable chair to sit in where you are at your home or apartment. And what we're going to do is just a centering exercise to feel a sense of groundedness and to feel, again, a sense of calm. And so I would invite you to just sit calmly, quietly in the chair, your feet flat on the floor, and to feel the strength that the chair has to hold you. We can just rest into the chair. And what we're going to do is just do a short breathing exercise where we're aware of our inhalation and then aware of exhaling. And what we do is, in our mind's eye, we follow our breath. We'll close our eyes, we'll follow our breath as we inhale, we'll follow our breath as we exhale. And I would invite you, as you exhale, to say a word, a mantra word. Each time you exhale, in your mind's eye, silently, you would say a word. You might use the word, a comforting word like love or peace or joy or heart or whatever. And that word that you say kind of grounds you and brings you back to this sort of centered place. And so I would again invite you to close your eyes. We'll do this together. And what we do is we just inhale, and we quietly exhale. And as we exhale silently, we say this mantra word. I'm going to use the word peace. And then again, we'll inhale, following our breath, and then exhale and saying our mantra word, peace. So I would invite us to just do this for a few minutes together. Again, inhaling, being aware of the breath coming in, and following our breath as it goes out with our silent word. So let's just do this for a few minutes. And as thoughts or ideas or something occurs to you in your mind, just acknowledge it for a moment and then let it go and go back to focusing on your breath. Inhale and exhale. So I know we're not doing this very long, but I hope that was helpful for you and you could feel the calm coming over you as you did this short breathing exercise. Some people call it centering prayer, some people call it meditative breathing, lots of ways to understand it. But I would encourage you to think about maybe doing this on a fairly regular basis as a way of just grounding and centering yourself. It just serves our overall health, spiritual health, our mental health, our physical health that way. And sometimes we can all get so sort of stressed and worked up and worrying and all that. This is a way of sort of calming us down and feeling the presence of the beauty that's within us. So thank you for doing this, and I hope you're able to do it on a fairly regular basis. And now we'll continue with our program. So this again is the second part of a series. Maybe you were with us for our last program. The last program focused on the false self, and we kind of went into that with quite depth and hopefully understanding. And now we're going to move into the second part of this, which is the true self. And how this works again is that by knowing where our false self is and how we're working with that and coming to understand that and making that more conscious, that naturally helps us move into our truer self. And there are other words for truer self that just to talk about for a minute when we talk about truer selves or our truest self. And that is that it might be our best self or our real self or our whole self or our natural self or our higher self or our authentic self. And the idea is that to become more the women and the men that we were created to be, we do this inner work that helps us move more from the false self to the true self. And I just want to repeat, in case you didn't hear the last session or weren't able to see the last session, that we all have a false self. It's part of who we are, not to be judged, not to be critical about, or not to be upset about with ourselves. We all have a false self, and we always will. The idea is we're always working to become more our true self. It's the beautiful journey that we can be on in our life that way. And I want to just say that sometimes, and I probably neglected to mention this in the last session about false self, is the opportunity to work with somebody that might know sort of this journey and has studied sort of psychology or some theology or spiritual direction work that can be a guide for you as you work on false self and becoming more your truest self. So you might reach out to somebody whom you trust and who has training in this to help you on this journey. And again, this journey is to be welcomed. There's nothing negative about this. This just is an opportunity to become more our truest self. And as I did say in the last session, this journey requires inner work. It asks us to be intentional about doing this work. It asks us to do some, at times, more challenging things, like to look at our own brokenness, to look at where I feel not whole, to where I feel like I'm not as authentic as I want to be or as honest as I want to be. And so the opportunity to understand my wounds and how early life experiences or previous experiences in my life may have been injurious to me or debilitating in some way. And so that I can look at some truths about myself that are not always easy to do. So I must say that I'm sensitive to the fact that this is not easy work to do, and I have tremendous and profound respect for those that want to do this work, because I think it's an important journey for us to be on in our life. And so the opportunity to, again, move from false self to true self is truly one that I'm very supportive of, and I work with people in this way a lot. And also, just to be very transparent about it, I continue to work with somebody myself in my own life to continue this journey from my false self, which I clearly have, to a more hopefully truer self that I would like to kind of enter into more fully that way. So let's be a little more descriptive of what truer self about that way. We talked about a higher self or authentic self, but truer self also has to do with our beauty, our ability to understand gratitude, our ability to be honest with ourselves and others, our ability to live with integrity. That's true self. The understanding of our wholeness that way, and to see ourselves as these whole human beings. Our true self has to do with our generosity, our ability to give and share. Our true self has to do with having patience with ourselves and others. Our true self has the ability to forgive ourselves and to forgive others as part of our true self. And clearly our capacity to love and to love others is very much central to our true selves. We're born to be people that can love. And when I use the word love, I'm not just thinking about romantic love. I'm thinking about friendship love. I'm thinking about love of nature. I'm thinking about family love, thinking about love of the divine. There's different forms of love that way. But the capacity to love and be loved is clearly part of our truer self that way. Our call to do good work in the world, that we might make the world a little better in terms of what we've had to offer that way. Our ability to serve. What does it really mean to serve another, to care for another? That's coming out of our true self that way. Our ability to know joy, to what a real inner sense of joy, and to be able to just laugh, and at times just have real great deep belly laughs, and to so enjoy some humorous moment, not at anybody's expense, but the joy of real laughter is part of our truest self. We are born with a sense of humor, and the idea is to be able to sort of develop that sense of humor. So the capacity to really feel true self is that ability to really feel, to cry, to be sad, to be open, to be joy-filled. These are ways of, I'm so respectful as I work with people, especially as I work with men and women too, but as I work with more men. And when a man is able to cry, and it happens quite often as I work with men, as they touch deep wounds, or as they come to understand their deep loves, or they come to know deep loss, their ability to shed tears is such a beautiful expression of their truest self, rather than holding that in or protecting that way. Our ability to be vulnerable, that is part of our true self, to be open and vulnerable. The idea of having a sense of self-trust that way, and self-love. I talked about love earlier, but love of self that way, not in some conceited, puffed up way, but a genuine valuing of who I am and valuing what I do in the world and my capacity to know self-love. I think courage is part of our truer self that way, to have courage to step into opportunities that way. Our forthrightness, being, again, honest and open. Our humility is part of our being truer self. And the idea that we're willing to look at some of the challenges that we've had and to look at dealing with conflict as part of our true self. So I could go on and on. There are many different qualities we talk about this, but I hope as I've described that, the idea of this true self is coming through and you're kind of gaining a sense of what we mean by that. I have another way of sort of describing true self, and another word I like a lot when we think about true self is our authentic self. This is the real me. I'm bringing you who I truly am. There's not a whole lot back here that I'm holding back or that I'm pretending or protecting or whatever. I'm bringing you, this is my authentic self. Now we're always in progress that way because we always have something going on back here. But the more we're able to talk about this and be aware of this and process this and talk to somebody about this and making it more conscious, the healthier we are that way. But other ways of describing true self is our positive self. I look at life through a lens that sort of says yes to life that way, yes to life. Sort of an enthusiastic sense of self. That way is part of our true self. Enthusiasm, the idea that the Spirit is with us, that there's this wholeness about us through this enthusiastic way of understanding life. There's also a deep humility about that, a generous self, a humorous self, a grateful self, a very loving self, a hope-filled self, a forgiving self, an idea of an open self. And so, again, I may have repeated some of these from my descriptions from before, but I'm trying to paint a picture for us of what our true self looks like. And we all have these capabilities. We all have this opportunity to grow in these areas. There are certain areas that I am clearly want to grow in, and I hope there are some that you're able to identify too. So another way of thinking about true self is what are the characteristics of a personality that is growing into the true self? Well, there's, again, some of these may repeat, but there's an integrity about us. There's an honesty about us. There's a graciousness about us as our true self. There's an awareness self. I have an awareness. I'm conscious of things. I'm aware of my impact on others. I hopefully treat others with a sense of dignity that way, and a sense of real compassion and caring. That's true self. I'm a rested self. I'm not always tired or always sort of lagging or whatever. I have a rest about me that way. I'm a grounded self. I'm grounded. I'm not sort of flying around and caught in all sorts of drama or whatever. I'm kind of a grounded self, as a true self. I'm a centered self, centering, feeling a center that way. And the word I really like when we think about a true self is the word gravitas. Gravitas, having this sort of deep weightiness of truth and hope and love and care. When you have gravitas, people are drawn to you because of how you are in the world that way. Trustworthy, faithful, that way. So again, maybe I've a bit overdone this, but I really want us to grasp what that true self looks like and how it behaves and how we want to grow into it that way. Now, getting to more of this true self, there are some pathways to do that. And pathways clearly like doing inner work. We've talked a lot in this whole series about inner work, self-reflection, vulnerability, openness, and self-honesty. And so I would like to just offer 5 ideas that lead us to this truer self, our truer self. And the first idea is the journey to our truest self is most often accompanied by a wound or by a loss or by a failure. The literature talks a lot about this, and for many men and women too, for many men and women, the journey to becoming less false and more true can be when you get a concerning diagnosis, or you lose a dear friend, or you got fired from your job, or some sort of loss or failure or real challenge comes into your life, it wakes you up to the fact that there's more to life than what I've been sort of doing here and moving to our true self. So this is not always true, but oftentimes some very challenging experience where we are forced to deepen in our inner life journey to cope with this challenge that has come to us that way. And so many people talk about, well, when this happened to me, this changed everything. And that has truly then guided my life. So you may reflect on your life that something as a child or young adult or as an adult that came into your life that was really challenging for you in that way. And that put you on a path out of more of the false self to the true self that way. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, much of what is holding us back around this is unconscious to us. Like, I'm not aware of, let's say I'm dealing with this issue of some sort of addiction, and I have this addiction going on that's really out of my false self, and it's not my truest self. I often don't know exactly why I have this addiction. It's unconscious to me why I need to do this, why I'm drinking too much, or I have this alcohol addiction that way. And so the idea of making conscious what is driving this behavior, or I might have a shoplifting addiction, that I'm shoplifting a lot, or I might be doing pornography, or I might be doing something, and I'm not judging any of those things that way, but these are things that keep us in some ways from being our best or truest self. And the ability for us to understand why I'm doing that. We often say all behavior has meaning. All behavior has meaning. And so the idea is to understand, why am I doing this? What does this mean in that way? And so oftentimes this is where getting help can really be a good idea that way, to have somebody help you think through why this is going on, where's this coming from, because we're not really aware of it that way. Meditation helps, like the exercise we did earlier. It gets us in touch with more consciousness. Dreams, understanding how dreams are speaking to us that way. And oftentimes, too, another way of getting in touch with these unconscious aspects of ourselves is when we have extreme emotion, like we're incredibly angry, or we're incredibly sad, or we're incredibly happy. These extremes, we can then ask ourselves, where is that coming from? Why am I experiencing that? That can help us be in touch with what's unconscious to us that way. So the third idea, we have to really be intentional about the journey. The idea that if I really want to be a better pickleball player, I need to get out and play pickleball that way, or if I am really wanting to lose 20 pounds or whatever, I really need to work at that and really commit to that. And this becoming our true self is the same thing. If I want to have this better life, I think, and more enjoyable and a greater sense of wholeness about my life, I really need to commit to this journey, and to read about it, and to talk to somebody about it, and to journal about it, and to really spend some time doing the inner work to get there that way. It doesn't just happen on its own. Number 4, this is, and I mentioned this earlier, but getting the help of other people can really be supportive in terms of doing this journey to our truest self that way. And oftentimes people can really help us on that journey. And again, being transparent about this, I've had somebody in my life for a number of years who's been very helpful for me, that I meet with fairly regularly to be on this journey that way. The number 5 idea here is that we're always growing into this. We never fully arrive at this. We never fully get rid of the false self and into the true self that way. Maybe the moment when we pass from this life to the next, that happens, but as long as we're alive, we're always going to have some aspects of our false self, and it's okay. The idea, it's the journey that we're on. And the last key idea here is that we often think about this process as going from sort of the not so good to the better in terms of that. And I just want to emphasize that these are not good or bad. And so the sixth idea is that when we look at this experience through what we call non-dual thinking, and we've talked about dualistic thinking and dual thinking throughout this program because it's central to this idea of this precious life that we want to grow into. Dual thinking is things are good or bad. I'm good or bad. I'm right or wrong. They're right or wrong, whatever. And I'm not sure that's as helpful as what we would call non-dual thinking. If you want to read more about this, Father Richard Rohr has written a lot about non-dual thinking. Non-dual thinking is, it's an opportunity. So this is not good, this is not bad, and this is not good. It's just all an opportunity to grow and deepen. And so I make a mistake. Oh, that was bad, or that was good. No, don't go there when you make a mistake. Oh, I made a mistake. There's an opportunity now for me to learn, rather than going to this, again, dualistic thinking. So I really encourage us to be non-dual thinkers that way. And so that everything in our life, we don't have to go to good or bad, everything is an opportunity. How am I going to grow through this opportunity? Now sometimes we have to dig deep to make that happen, but the idea, there is an opportunity in everything. So I would like to just close with a few quotes from this and to support this inner work. I'll read them and just give credit to who they are, but they all support this idea of becoming our truest self. Eugene Peterson, who's a theologian and author, said, if you want to become a better person, become a deeper person. And it's the depth that we gain that helps us do that and move in that direction. This is one of my favorite quotes, and you've heard this before if you've been with us in these programs. The amount of growth and transformation we will experience in life is proportionate to the amount of truth we can stand about ourselves. And so that comes from the work of Carl Jung. The idea is that can I really look at some truth within myself if I want to grow and deepen that way? This has a little more depth to it, but this is from Robert Johnson. And Robert Johnson, who wrote Owning Your Own Shadow and some other books, he said this once: every person must live the inner life in one form or another. I'm encouraging us to make a commitment to understanding our inner life. But then Johnson goes on to say, consciously or unconsciously, voluntarily or involuntarily, the inner life will claim us and exact its dues. If we go to that realm consciously, by doing our inner work, our prayers, our meditation, our dream work, our ceremonies, our active imagination, it will be a plus. If we ignore the inner world, as many of us do, the unconscious will find its way into our lives through pathology, our psychosomatic symptoms, our compulsions, our depressions, our neuroses, and I added, and our addictions. And so the idea, what Johnson's saying is here, we want to go to this realm consciously that way. I want to just share a couple other quotes. One here is by Richard Rohr. What we usually often do is project our wounds and pain onto others, especially those we love. Project means we put it on them instead of looking at it within ourselves. Rohr goes on to say, the better path is to integrate our own pain and our own wounds and to come to own them and to come to figure out why and how they keep distracting us from a more contented life, this more contented true life. So rather than project our pains, which we often do, to integrate them that way. And I just close with this last quote, and this has to do with the whole shadow piece. Robert Johnson sees that owning one's own shadow is a process by means of wholeness being restored to the personality, owning our own shadow, looking at those things inside that I just want to bury, I don't want to take a look at, I'm not proud about, the ability to take them out and look at them. And I just I'll add one short one to close with. This is from Bishop Michael Curry, and he said this: "It's impossible to know in the moment how a small act of goodness will reverberate through time." I like that a lot, because I know you go about doing small acts of hopefully goodness, and I know Austin does, and I try to, and I think that's what we're about at Silver Bay, trying to do small acts of kindness that hopefully reverberate out into lives and to make the world a better place. So I hope this has been helpful for you today, looking at this idea of growing into our truest self. I'm, again, so respectful of the opportunity for us to do inner work, and I hope that you'll be with us in future programs as we continue to look at this idea of how do we make the most of this gift of life that we've been given. Thank you for being with us today. I hope you're well. Take care, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. Bye now.